If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in a Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed. A child shall lead them.
To buy our merch.
Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener.
Savatage, If I Go Away is the next song on our stream. What, babe?
Is there a little summary for that one?
It's very short. This song is supposed to represent DT's desire to just disappear. Forget everything he's been through and just start over somewhere else. Yep. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's check it out. Let's check it out, dear listener. Savatage, If I Go Away. And this is a lyric video. Let's do it.
Ouch!
In the dark I've called out your name. It echoes in vain over again. In an empty room. If I go away, what would still remain? Me. The ghost within your eyes, the whisper in the silence. You see, believe, and I'm always there.
Wow.
Staring down a long, empty hole. Pictures on walls, all with your name. But it's not the same. Searching for the tone I can't hear. Been searching for years, somewhere inside.
Wow.
Didn't that sound... I was going back and forth between, is he talking about himself, or is he talking about missing his homie who died, or is he talking about both?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was a little confused too, because it didn't seem like explicitly clear that he was just talking about himself. Okay,
he says, in the dark,
did you have a favorite line?
Well, I had a favorite part when it went ding, 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 and he went exactly with the guitar line.
Yeah, yeah.
What was yours?
The ghost within your eyes, the whisper in your sighs.
Yeah, it looks like he's talking to someone, because you go right to verse 2 or stanza 2, scroll up to stanza 2.
Oh.
It says, in the dark I've called out your name, it echoes in vain over and over again in an empty room.
Yeah, I know. That sounds like he's talking about his friend. Unless you're gonna go like really like Yoon.
Why?
Well,
say he was talking to himself.
Yeah, like the better version of himself, or so he's. Remember we talked about that, like, you know, he kept talking about wanting to go back to what he was before.
Right.
So like talking to that version of himself, like I've called out your name, like the whole like looking in a mirror, not really recognizing yourself because stuff is too much has changed, and like probably wanting that version of himself before the death of his friend. If I go away, what would still remain of me? See, even that kind of sounds
maybe
like...
he's looking at the entire existential thing itself, because if you look, it says, somewhere on that long, lonely road, we all stand alone looking for clues from our different views. So it looks to me like what he's saying there is that the long, lonely road would be life, the journey of life. Because he says we all stand alone, because basically we all die alone.
Life, yeah.
So we're looking for clues from our different views. Clues about what? Well, what happens after, it looks like. So if you start from that perspective, that he's not just talking about his specific friends, but just about the journey of life itself, then I think that adds a little bit more context.
Okay,
so
so
then he
if
says,
that's
if
what
I
it
go
is-
away, what will still remain of me?
If that's, excuse me, if that's what it is, when he says, so if it's standing on the road looking for clues about what comes after, and then he says, in the dark I've called out your name, it could
Right.
be his friend. It
Right.
echoes in vain over again in an empty room, which then gives him the idea, is there nothing, like, or can these people not communicate back with us?
Right. Which
yeah.
is the ultimate question. What happens to us after we die, or more specifically, what happens to our consciousness after we die?
Do you think when somebody dies, like, obviously we can't communicate with them, but do you think that they can still see you even for a moment?
What do you mean by that?
Like, do you think that there's any crossover time? Like, okay, well, first of all, do you believe that your spirit, soul, whatever, just kind of floats up? Do you believe that angels come and bring you? What do you think happens?
I don't believe the spirit and the soul are physical, so they couldn't bring you up.
Well, to this is what I think is so funny about our conversations. Like, I didn't think it was like, it was just like they're going to guide you. They're going to go with the spirit of the soul, whatever that is.
I don't know where the spirit of the soul is. So it might be as simple as when you die, you get the sensation that you took off a headset and that you're in the real room. You're in your real room. So like if I was in a virtual reality game and, you know, my guy fell off of a cliff and you can kind of see the ground coming to you.
Yeah.
And then somebody takes off your headset. They didn't carry me anywhere. I was simultaneously in both realms.
Right.
It's just my consciousness was directed toward this particular realm. So I think when you die, it'll probably be more of that kind of an experience than a traveling up type experience.
What about the homie that got swept away by the well, there's a couple things in my head. Elijah, when the chariot came to get him, and I understand he didn't die.
Right.
There
Chariot
was
safari,
yeah. And then also, like, have you seen that video of the life flight that was taking off?
Yeah.
And like when the person died, like somebody was recording it, and you see that like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very skeptical of that stuff.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like, because I think what that does, that communicates like a physicalist understanding of the spirit. Because if you could see it, that means it has physical attributes.
But I mean, even the Aka Indians, they said that when the missionaries died, they saw.
I agree.
Do you think that that's just God giving them some sort of vision? I don't think
that would come up on a camera.
Oh.
Right, because I think that world is that's an interdimensional situation, and so if you are given, DMT, things like that.
Just to give you guys a quick, I think we've explained it before, but these missionaries went to these Indians that I don't even think the Aka Indians is the correct term that you're supposed to use, but that's all I know them as. And when the missionaries kind of made contact with them, stuff was going really good, and then all of a sudden stuff went south. The missionaries had guns with them, but they refused to shoot the men and women that were there. And so the men and women that were there started attacking them with spears. And according to the Indians that lived there, when you died, if things were right according to their like religious views, you would jump over the Great Bow, which was a river. Like you would not jump over it, but you would cross it. You would be able to cross it. And they saw when they killed these missionaries, before the missionaries had even died, they saw what they explained as their spirits jumping over the Great Boa. And so they didn't understand, like, obviously they're not of the same religion. How were they able to not just cross it, but to jump over it? Like they were beyond ready to be there, and they weren't even dead, and they were able to do this. So that had a massive influence on those Indians. And then the wives of the husbands that all got killed in the river that day, it's so emotional. They loaded up their babies on their backs, and they went into that village of Indians, and they lived among them. They didn't kill them. They ended up building a relationship with them, learned the language, and they got those stories later on. They said they were asking how were they able to do that, and then they were able to tell them about Jesus and all that. So that's kind of like that. So when we talk about that, they saw that, but he's saying that that's just something that they saw. That's not something that would have been. It's not like if you had a camera running it, you would have seen that.
Yeah, like when somebody's on DMT, I believe they're seeing something real.
Yeah. But
it's not something that's going to come out on a camera that's limited to 3 dimensions.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So, there is the question, like in the song, especially when you lose a friend.
No, we're not talking about India.
When you lose a friend in sort of unnatural circumstances, especially at a young age, it definitely forces you to think a lot about your mortality. I remember when, Behind the Music, Metallica, when Cliff Burton died, and like he was dead, he was gone, dead. And Metallica was talking about it, obviously very painful situation. And Kirk said they just got completely, totally wasted, drunk, horrible. And Kurt was saying he was walking up and down the street saying, "Where's Cliff?" Screaming, "Where's Cliff?" So those questions, especially when you're young, I remember the first time, it happened, it was a really crazy, crazy feeling to be like, yo, this dude is here, he's not here anymore. Like, oh, it's crazy. So it makes you ask those questions, and it makes you really, dig into what the meaning of life is, all the rest of that stuff. And I just think with human beings that the relationships we all have with each other are so strong and so transdimensional that I don't care what your stated belief or non-belief system is. Anytime you lose somebody like that, you're going to ask those questions, and you're going to have to, make those, find a way to make peace with the idea that you will or will not see them again. And again, for me, it's like, why? What is this preoccupation with death that we have? How does that help us replicate the species? Mm-hmm. You got a lot of people who have great genetic profiles that should be able to, replicate their species, but they lose somebody very important to them and they can't get over it.
Yeah.
So there's all these things where it's like we're not just animals who have been naturally selected towards evolutionary proficiency. Like there's something else going on with us, because there's a lot of habits that human beings have that we romanticize, that we present as good things, that do not work toward survival and gene replication.
Right, yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
Romeo and Juliet being the greatest love story of all time in the Western world does not comport to that. You got these two kids in the prime of their youth. Evolutionarily speaking, we should be completely against that, because those are the last people on the planet. I mean, the Goldilocks zone is 20 to 24 to have children. That's right where they were. So, like, what else is happening with us?
Right.
Why are these human relationships so deep? And sorry, survival and gene replication doesn't explain the depth of the connection between us. And so I think, that, among other things, is why I think materialism is just doomed. I think it's doomed. And I think something else, I think panpsychism is going to kind of replace it, but that's kind of wobbly, and then it's going to be a free-for-all in the scientific community when you get quantum physicists in there. So I don't know, but this question is like, yeah, he's personally sick of it all, I think, and he's like, yo, like, there's just been too much back and forth, but at the same time, it's also like, what is the entire point of this at the existential level?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Why are we so bonded to each other? All those kinds of questions.
Yeah. Maybe, and then there's also this, staring down a long, empty hall, pictures on the wall, all with your name, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Because that, again, I could see it being both ways. I could see it being like, they have, memories of this person up, and he's seeing them, but why would he be in a situation where he would be seeing them? Which then makes you think, well, maybe this is a hallway in his mind that he's seeing. It's empty, but it has pictures of him as he transitioning through his life. They're all him, but it's not the same. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, Kai, but that's not survival of the kindest, right? If a guy, Romeo and Juliet is not survival of the kindest. So why is that such a compelling story if it's completely militates against our evolution? Go ahead. Well, I think, but that's one of those things that makes me say it might be a poetic or a Jungian way of him talking about himself, because in what circumstances a person have a picture with a name attached to it? That's usually a famous person that has a name attached to a picture. So I see what you're saying, like, which of course is a horrible prescience relative to this band, because that actually happened. You know what I'm saying? Because the guitarist died, so he very well could be in that situation in the future and not even know it as he's writing it. That shit's crazy. Yikes. I really loved it. Okay, I saw some of the feedback. The song stayed pretty much in the exact same place from beginning to end.
it did. I agree. It did.
And
it did.
Usually with this band, there's some variation, especially with the vocal style. But it looked to me like they decided that they were going to just keep this as a ballad and keep it where it is. I would have liked a little bit of variation. I think the lack of variation hurt it a little bit. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I don't
but
think
not
so.
for you, it looks like.
No, because for one, I'm okay with a song that slowly burns and doesn't. I usually do like give me some high points like what Flora does. You know, I do like some of that. But I was okay with this one because for this period where he's at, like, I feel like that it fits. Like, I think that you kind of hit that point where, you know, things are not changing for him. He's got a lot of things that he's facing, and you are at sort of like this standstill point, and it's not super triumphant, and it's not like, you know, dead in the water either. He's just kind of like there. And I felt like that the music communicated it, but I still felt like that the music communicated it in a beautiful way. So it wasn't just like, it didn't feel gray. It still had a beauty to it, like a sorrowful sort of beauty. So I personally still liked it a lot. I'm going to give this one a 9.75. This is still, you know, very high for me.
This is a solid 8.4 for me. Solid 8.4 for me. Don't touch that dial, dear listener. We have more Savatage, a streets and opera coming up for you very, very soon. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Out.